Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today we are featuring Sabretooth from the Marvel Legends X-Men Age of Apocalypse toy line. Alright, so this line of action figures came out months ago, and it's just now that I'm completing the set. I was on Amazon, and I noticed that some of the figures kind of like dropped down, some slightly below retail. The exception was Sabretooth. For whatever reason, Sabretooth costed a couple dollars more than retail, but I had no problem pulling the trigger on this figure. I'm a big Sabretooth fan. He's probably one of my favorite X-Men characters. I actually like Sabretooth more than Wolverine. So, alright, let's get started. We have Sabretooth here. The figure looks great, in the packaging. He's a nice, bulky figure. He really fills out the window. As you can see, you get the Build-A-Figure piece for Colossus over here. There's an alternate portrait for Sabretooth. He's like snarling. His eyes are rolled back. Looks great. He comes with additional hands, so you'll notice a pair of fists at the bottom. Great artwork on the side of the box. Wonderful illustration. And more over here. This looks awesome. I want to say, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this might be the artwork of artist David Nakayama. I think. I might be wrong, though. Okay, for his bio. After betraying Apocalypse and making his escape, Sabretooth joins with the mutant rebels, the X-Men, to fight for good in a harsh dystopian future. So if you're a fan of the Age of Apocalypse, and if you grew up during the 90s, you'll remember the comic book. And in the comic book, Sabretooth was paired with the character Wild Child. And way back when Toy Biz was making Marvel action figures, they actually released a Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth figure that came with a Wild Child accessory. If you go back into my catalog of videos, I actually take a look at that action figure, and it's one of my favorite Toy Biz action figures. So if you haven't seen the video, go check it out. But here we're going to talk about this Hasbro Marvel Legends version of Sabretooth, and let's get started with that. Let's take them out. Alright, so there's actually two trays here, which surprised me. So this other tray here includes Colossus's headband and then two additional ponytails, depending on which head of Sabretooth you're using. The ponytails look to be identical, so you have options. Let's take a closer look at that alternate head. As I pointed out before, the alternate head, he's kind of like growling and snarling. His teeth are kind of bared out, and his eyes are rolled in the back of his head. The stock head, he kind of has like a much more friendlier grimace, which makes sense. He's in the Age of Apocalypse. Sabretooth is a good guy. He's a little bit on the friendlier side, at least with the way this face looks. Let's take out one of the ponytails real quick. I'm not going to plug this in all the way because I don't want to lock it into place yet. But there's a socket in the back. Let's get this into focus. Socket in the back, peg right there, and you just plug it in. But like I mentioned, I'm not going to commit to plugging this in all the way just yet. No, I'll save that for later. Alright, so this is a nice bulky figure. I'm liking this a lot so far. This guy stands in at about, if I had to guess, I'm guessing probably like at least 7 inches or 7 1/4. And I'm wrong. This guy stands in at about a little over 7.5 inches. So it's a nice sizable action figure. I'm pretty sure he's probably on par with the previous versions of Sabretooth that we've gotten. Great head sculpt. The attention to detail is really, really nice. You get this guy in the right the right light and the shadows casted on his face look really, really good. Like that. That looks awesome. I love the texturing on his collar here. His costume, it almost looks like the Juggernaut, you know, even though this is kind of a much lighter shade of brown. The costume design, it just evokes the Juggernaut, especially with the studded collar and excuse me, and the bare sleeves. Great. Excuse me, I'm like losing my voice right now, so. All right, so yeah, great detail. The sculpting's really well done on his face. I think for me, the face is probably my favorite part of the character. It looks really well done. One detail I'm really liking is the fact that the hair on his arms is actually sculpted on. So there's actually a texture on his arms. Like with some figures, I think some of the Wolverine figures, like Wolverine, you know, he's historically known to have like, you know, a very hairy body, very hairy arms. And and on the action figures, they'd always denote that by like stippling, you know, the hairs on his arms. But in the case here, the hair is actually sculpted on. So it's a nice relief. It's a nice detail. I love the size of the character. I like the mass on him. He feels really bulked out. And much like the original design of the comic book, there's some asymmetry here. He has the metal bracer on his right arm. The alternate hands. Alright, so this is one thing that's kind of bothering me about this action figure. So the alternate hands are closed fists, whereas the stock hands, they're this kind of like C grips. Which is even more baffling is that this hand here is actually a trigger finger. So what I'm guessing is this is probably a reused hand. It's probably taken from another action figure and just repurposed for Sabretooth. So the reason why I'm kind of against that is because like with some of the previous versions of the Sabretooth figure that we've gotten so far, some of you might remember his hands are kind of like almost like in a claw like this, and he has his like sharp nails protruding. You know, Sabretooth, you know, he's not like Wolverine. Wolverine has like his retractable claws, whereas Sabretooth depends on his fingernails. And here, you know, he's just having gloved hands. So, you know, the ferocity of his character isn't really fully conveyed. It would have been nice if they gave us hands that were actually more akin to the character. But it's a really well done figure. I think of all the figures I've handled in the Age of Apocalypse line, especially for this wave, this Sabretooth I think is my favorite figure so far. Now, articulation wise, this guy's head rotates. Let's get him to focus first. Rotates. You can look down about this much. Wow, wait, that's pretty far. He can like tuck his chin into his chest. That's awesome. His head arches back, way back, which is awesome also. He has a cut mid-torso, so he could crunch, arch back, and he does have a waist swivel. His arms rotate, they go out. Bicep cut, allows for swivel. Unfortunately, you know, due to the mass of his arms, this guy only has a single jointed elbow. So you're only going to get that much range of motion, which is kind of unfortunate. Especially for a character of his size. Like, even though Sabretooth is a much bulkier, heftier character, you know, he's very agile. And it would have been nice if they afforded the articulation, you know, with the 2 points as opposed to the 1. His legs kick up. They can kick out a little bit, not as far as I'd like. He has a cut towards the upper thigh, swivel, double jointed knees, and I believe there's a boot cut, so he might be able to swivel at the boot. No, I take it back. There is no swivel at the boot. Ankle articulation. So yeah, very solid figure. the articulation for me is the disappointing aspect of the toy. Like otherwise, I think it would have been like a near perfect figure. Like visually, he looks like what he's supposed to. He has the mass, he has the size. The head sculpt, I think, is fabulous. It looks awesome. The detailing on his arm, especially with the sculpted hair, looks fantastic. His costume is very subtle, but it works. My biggest gripes is the hands, the alternate hands. It would have been nice if he actually had like the claw hands. And the articulation, it's a little bit limited in certain areas, but beyond that, it's a great figure. Definitely, probably my favorite figure in this wave. So. Alright, let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for your continued support. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.